Let's turn our attention now to the New York Times report saying Nigeria is facing its worst economic crisis in decades with skyrocketing inflation, a national currency in free fall, and millions of people struggling to buy food. The crisis, it says, is largely believed to be rooted in two major changes implemented by the president 15 months ago. The removal of fuel subsidies and the floating of the currency, which together, it says, have caused major price rises, adding that punishing inflation means poverty rates are expected to rise further this year and the next, according to the World Bank. But the presidency disagrees. It says the report, based on several interviews, was all gloom and doom, as it never mentioned the positive aspects in the same economy, as well as the ameliorative policies being implemented by the central and state governments. Joining me is Special Advisor to President Bola Tinubu on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga. Mr. Onanuga, thank you for joining us on the news this hour.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
The New York Times in this report based its submission on a few factors like high inflation, free-falling naira, and the fact that millions of people are struggling to buy food. Do you agree to an extent that these indices with these indices, that Nigeria is facing an unprecedented economic crisis?
Well, our contention is that we are not facing any unprecedented economic crisis. This country has gone through several economic crises in the past. I remember in 1983, that was towards the end of Shagari regime, we faced serious economic crisis. I remember even much some 2 decades ago, again, we faced serious crisis. So we are not just going through a crisis. The measure that President Tinubu took, I mean the devaluation of the naira, and also the removal of fuel subsidy, were things that ought to have been done some decades ago. Somebody has to brave the horse and say, look, let's do this thing, let's do it now. And that's the bold measure that he took, the bold step that he took by introducing those measures. Of course, they came with their unintended consequences. Unintended things happened, like affecting inflation, and people said, oh, they could not buy food and all kinds of things. Well, I would say that our people generally, you see, there's a lot of poverty in our country, even before President Tinubu took those decisions. And that's what you see playing out. People, of course, did not have enough disposable income before President Tinubu came. And when those measures were introduced, it also worsened the condition of people. But the point we are making is that it's not all gloom and doom. This government has studied what happened and has been making all kinds of efforts to reduce the impact of those necessary measures on our people. The president kept saying every time he has the opportunity that he feels the pain of people and is working hard to reduce the pain. He's very sincere about it, and all the measures he's been rolling out, the government has been rolling out, it clearly suggests that he understands the plight of our people and is making efforts. Not just the federal government, even many of our state governments are doing similar things. That's the point we are making in our response to New York Times. There are things people are going through hardship, but also the other side of it is that this government is making efforts to reduce the hardship.
Another interesting point raised in this article is the IMF's position in March that federal government is subsidizing fuel again, or warning that the move would cost up to 3% of Nigeria's GDP this year. Is it true we're paying subsidy on petrol again?
Well, as far as I know, the policy of government remains that fuel subsidy is gone, the way President Tinubu declared it on May 29, 2023. That is the policy of government. There's no subsidy as of now, and no official policy on subsidy. The official policy is that subsidy has ended.
You find out that the position of this New York Times article says that the current economic challenges is largely rooted in those two big policies of Mr. President last year, removal of fuel subsidy and the unification of exchange rate. Walk us through how government is responding to what you call the unintended implication of these policies.
No, I've said it. Government has taken various measures, a lot of measures. Let me tell you about some of the things there. Even some of our media, the way we report developments. I read a report recently that said, inflation has moved to a staggering 33.69. I didn't want that staggering. From where? Last month in April, inflation was 33 point something, 0.4 something, and then it moved to by 0.26%. Ditto from March to April. Inflation slowed down. So things are improving. Things are improving. The impact, people will soon begin to feel the impact of all this reduction. I had a call, for example, from my town in Ogun State some few days ago that do I know that the cost of Gari is going down? Inflation is on a reduction level. It's going down. It is going to go down. This government, when it came in last year, May last year, inflation was at 23.65%. 23.65%. The movement from then to now is just about 10.4%. It's about 10.4%. So we already had some problems before this president took over. We didn't create all the problems. We inherited many of those problems. And as I said, this government is making so many efforts to reduce those problems. And one of those things that we have seen, the government introduced a loan scheme for our students. Millions of them will benefit from this. This will help the parents at home. Some of us who went to school, either we used scholarship or we had some grants or something like that. We went to school in the 80s, in the late 70s, 80s. So that's what President Tinubu has brought back. It will help many parents. Many parents who could not afford to send their children to tertiary schools will benefit from this. Their children will benefit, no matter how many children they have. They will go to school without having to bother themselves about where to get the money to sustain themselves come from. Government is also embarking on government also has introduced what they call the credit corporation. This also enable those of us who are working to go there to ask for money, to be able to buy things that we need at home, essential things. And this, we believe, will boost business, will boost retail business. These are some of the things government has done. So many things I said. Nano businesses, they've collected 50K each, over 1 million as at the last count. They've collected this money. It's free grant from the government of this nation. And the government wants to extend it to big businesses, 1 billion each to 75 businesses, and some other ones like that this government intends to pursue. What of social security schemes, all those ones are on. So the government is just not following this and say, let people suffer. No, this government is compassionate. It does not want Nigerian people to suffer. But those measures, those policies that the government took at the beginning of this administration, they were necessary, they were essential. Otherwise, this country will have even entered a more serious economic crisis.
Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga. Thank you for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you very much.